It's no secret by the quality of my videos and the games that I'm familiar with that I'm poor. When you're poor in the gaming world, mobile gaming is the main path you're probably going to go down. That's the path I'm most familiar with, which led me to find a lot of shitty, cheaply made mobile horror games. The topic of mobile horror gaming is one that most people are familiar with by now. It usually consists of a guy who speaks Spanish or Russian as their first language, coding a game in their basement that turns out glitchy, low quality, and full of ads for even more bootleg mobile games. Once in a while, you can find mobile horror games that are actually pretty decent in quality. Granny is a great example of this, and it became so popular that it got a bunch of sequels and a huge update to the original game, and it was ported to PC. Ice Scream is also a pretty popular one, although it's been years since I've played it, so I don't remember much about it. Back in 2021, I found a mobile horror game that I actually fell in love with, and haven't stopped playing. Except for one time I had to uninstall it for an extended time because the servers kept crashing. This game is called Freddy, and it's made by a Russian dev team called TortugaLTD, who have made a couple more games for mobile, but aren't very well known. This game was released on October 5th, 2020. Tortuga seems like a genuine mobile game company, a nice contrast to the greedy cash grabbers like Voodoo Games. They have a microtransaction system, but it's not required, and I'll get into the in-game currency later. They've taken feedback very well, and have updated the game since its release if people let them know of any problems. They continue updating the game to this day. They even responded to me directly when I suggested a progress saving system in 2022, and lo and behold, they added it a few months later. I won't act like I'm the only one who influenced them though. They claim they have been working on it already since the game was originally released without a save system. Freddy itself is pretty good quality for the standards of mobile games. The 3D modeling work is well done for the most part, the audio quality is decent, the enemies' programming is pretty good, and the gameplay itself is simple but effective. I also have to mention my interest in the art for the paintings seen in his house. They admittedly look like AI, but I know they were added before a time when AI was used or became popular. Some of these paintings were also seen in other mobile horror games much older than this one. If I can find the original artists of these, I'll put them on screen and link sources in the description. At face value, Freddy takes the formula of Granny and other bootleg games of that, but Freddy itself makes a lot of the gameplay aspects more original. You enter the start menu and you're able to choose which gameplay difficulty you want, although the last two levels are locked until you complete normal mode. Once you're in the actual game, you've been captured and trapped in the house of Freddy and need to escape within 5 days or he'll kill you. If you get caught by Freddy, you'll be knocked out and sent to the next day. Freddy can also set bear traps that stun you until you release yourself, but in extreme mode, they will kill you right away. Your task is to search the house for items that help you complete missions and escape the house. Some items are randomly placed each time you start a new game, but there are some pre-programmed to be in specific hiding spots all across the board. Objects can be hidden in a slew of places. The most common places for them are the drawers around the house, but they can also be hidden in the cabinets in the oven in the kitchen, on shelves around the rooms, and behind some of the paintings on the walls. An interesting detail Tortuga added is that some of the cabinets will actually be destroyed on the lower difficulty levels until they're needed on the higher levels for more objects to hide. The objects are used to complete missions or tasks throughout the game, including the basic task of escaping the house. The amount of missions available again depends on the difficulty level you play. Like I mentioned before, Tortuga alters each map so that some of the rooms needed for different tasks are physically blocked off by locked doors or iron bars until you get to the difficulty level needed to access them. Most of the tasks that get locked are the ones dealing with the game's lore, which I'll get into later. The last main aspect of the gameplay is Freddy's reaction to sound, which is also the most Granny-like part. There are objects all over the house that can be knocked around, and they will make sound that alerts Freddy and makes him go to that area. This includes the sounds from you dropping usable objects. The other main source of sound is his ability to hear doors open and closing, which activates on normal mode or higher. There are random occurrences that can happen around the house which may or may not alert Freddy. It's random. the phone ringing in Freddy's bedroom, the light bulb zapping in the dungeon, and the pipes spurting air, which also includes any noises that come up from completing tasks. Game says that he can hear your footsteps on certain difficulty levels, but he doesn't track you down even if he does. On the hardest levels, new noisemakers appear in the form of possessed toy things next to the exits and the fireplace that alert him when you approach them. The last thing isn't really important to the main game, but it somewhat ties into it. You may notice the store button below the actual start button. When you go into the store, there's many items you can buy using the in-game currency called buttons. You can buy boosters that help you win the game faster, which is actually a very new addition to the game. You can also buy skins for Freddy to appear as when you play the game, and decorations you can place in the bedroom you wake up in. Some of these will be talked about later. There are multiple ways to get buttons. You're given daily rewards that get bigger every 7 days until it resets the next week, allowing you to earn buttons quickly. The microtransaction system I mentioned before is present in the store with the items if you want to monetarily support the devs, but they also give you the option to watch ads and earn more free buttons. The biggest thing is that buttons are also present in the game itself, hidden around the map for you to find and collect. With each difficulty level, the amount of buttons around the house increases. The game makes it pretty easy to collect a lot of buttons and use them. Like I mentioned before, there are missions you complete in order to successfully escape the house and or kill Freddy. More tasks will unlock with each difficulty level so that you can get more access to the lore behind the game. Let's talk about the basic tasks first, that being the escape routes. You're given 2 ways to escape the house which are available from the easiest difficulty levels. Duh. One way is out the front door, and the other is through the sewers. For the front door exit, you're tasked with ripping out the wooden boards covering it, replacing the door handle, unlocking a digital code lock, and retrieving the key for the manual lock. The wooden boards can be broken using a crowbar that's randomly hidden in the cabinets. The door handle is also randomly hidden in the cabinets or on shelves. The next item is a flashlight, which is also hidden randomly, but it can be used to find the code for the digital lock, which is located on a shadowed wall in a sublevel of the house where the sewers are, also known as the dungeon. For the front door key, there's a bronze coin, it's actually gold, randomly hidden in the house, which you can then use to balance a scale in Freddy's bedroom and unlock the gold-colored cabinet where the key is. You're free to go after completing all 4 of those tasks. For the sewer exit, this is kind of where you gain access to the first quote-unquote secret in the house, which is available on all difficulties. This is a section of the house which you can unlock by a lever hidden behind a painting on the wall in the living room. In this area is a room containing a broken water pump, which you need to collect items to fix. There's also a false mirror in there, where a turn wheel is pre-programmed to be hidden always. You fix the pump by collecting electrical tape and a new alternator belt, which are randomly hidden. There's an extra step before you can turn it on, which is to find a power switch and hook it into the power box in the basement to give power back to the pump. After that, you need to break the wheel out of the mirror with a hammer that's on one of the shelves in the basement. Fun fact, the hammer and the wheel used to be randomly placed, but I guess the devs changed it so they'd always stay in those same spots. You take the wheel to the dungeon and hook it into the pipes of the sewer, then you can turn it and shut off the water and leave the sewer tunnels completely empty. Then you can unlock a gate using a randomly placed sewer key and leave. Like I keep mentioning, the difficulty levels go up, there are more missions you can complete which align with the lore of this game. I'm gonna run through the gameplay aspect of these tasks, but the explanation of the story itself will be in a separate section. The next task you get access to is the secret room. From the normal difficulty and higher, the map will update to where small candles are placed around the entire house on the walls, and the metal iron bars will be gone from the attic. You get a lighter which is randomly hidden, and light all the candles, and each candle you light makes the red runes light up on the big door in the attic. When all the runes light up, the door unlocks, but the noise will attract Freddy when you unlock the door, and again when you open it. Once you're sure he's out of the way, you can go in the room and read Freddy's diary. The lighter is also used for another task that unlocks with the normal difficulty or higher, that being Freddy's artifact destruction. In the same secret area of the house where the sewer pump is, there's a giant oven sitting on the wall. The oven needs a pipe repaired so it can work, which is randomly hidden. After fixing the pipe, you can use the lighter to spark the flames inside. The artifact you need to destroy is a glove hidden in the dungeon/sewer tunnel under the basement. It's found behind a pile of boxes in the bigger cell. You take the glove back to the oven room and put it in the oven, which destroys it and makes the skull fly out. The last task unlocks at a difficulty level, that being the mysterious spell. This task has the most steps out of them all. Did you notice that little crawl space in the basement? Now there's a rat there, who will attack you if you try to enter. You can easily deal with the rat by finding some poisoned pet food which randomly spawns, and putting it in the bowl next to the rat. When the rat dies, you'll notice that there's something in the crawl space, a monkey plushie. Next, you'll find a screwdriver. The screwdriver is used in another hidden room which can be found between the small tunnels in the basement and the downstairs of the oven room. The door opens to another locked door where there's a grate blocking the lever, which you can unscrew. Inside the locked room is a bunny plushie. The last plushie, which is a bear, is locked in another room which is safe from Freddy. That being the upstairs from the ritual room, which you can find between the closet and the workshop. There's a locked door that you need to open from the inside, which you can do with a slingshot and a rock. There are 2 parts for the slingshot, which you can find separately and place on the workbench with the same blueprint. Then the full thing will form and you can use it. There's a box of pebbles in the workshop, and you can reload the slingshot with it. And then you can shoot it through the window of that locked room, which knocks out the inside lock. The slingshot will also have another use later. After gathering the free plushies, you go back to the ritual room and place them on the altar in the corner. They'll transform into soul essence, which we'll use later too. The next step of the task involves the slingshot again. You may notice a key holder on the wall between the stairs and the living room doorway, which you have to knock out with the slingshot again. After you do that, the slingshot isn't useful anymore, and now you have a red key. There's a chest in the kitchen with a red lock, which is where you use the key. After you unlock the chest, you have access to a big saw. You take that saw into the library, the room before the basement, and use it to break the chains on this one book resting on a lectern, which you can use the soul essence on to make the spells on the book visible. Oh, by the way, on the extreme level, the saw can also be used on the front door where there's chains. Now you can grab the book, and you need to take it down to the downstairs of the pump room, where there's a coffin and another lectern sitting in the corner behind a half wall. The book is placed on the lectern, obviously. The last step of this mission involves getting a skull out of a cage in the attic, which is hanging over broken floorboards. If you fall through there, you'll end up dying and being respawned to the next day. The first thing you need is a fire poker, which you can get in the den upstairs by the fireplace. The fire poker will drag the cage towards you so that you don't fall. The next thing you need is a key for the cage lock, which randomly spawns. You can then take the skull down to the coffin room and put it in the coffin, attaching it with the rest of the skeleton. Then you click the book and you perform the spell, and you free the soul of Freddy. There is one more mini task you can do that isn't necessary, but it's kind of useful. It did change throughout some of the updates. I'll explain it. So in the workshop, there's another workbench that has the blueprint for a gun, and you can find the 2 parts of the gun around the house. You put the gun together, and there's a bunch of bullets in the same shelf as the pebbles for the slingshot. You used to be able to stun Freddy for like a whole minute, depending on the difficulty level, but they changed it very recently so that he's only stunned for a few seconds, which I kind of think is a dumb choice, but hey, whatever. I barely use the gun anyway. I mean, I guess it still gives you some distance from him if he's like right on your ass. You're probably already putting together the pieces of the lore in your head from the descriptions of the missions that coincide with it, but to make it easier, I want to give a rundown on the full story. The unnamed protagonist wakes up in the bedroom of a house owned by the serial killer wearing a plush bear mask. As they spend the duration of the game exploring the house and figuring out how to escape, the first things they're able to find are the little paper notes left by a possible previous victim of Freddy explaining some things. The first one, placed at a desk near the closet, explains the previous victim of Freddy was locked in a dungeon and escaped, and that the previous victim before them had written the code to the padlock on the wall so others could use it to escape. The second note found in the pump room is supposedly written by that same person, saying that the sewer escape is a suitable backup if they fail with opening the door. The third note is found in the dungeon, explaining that the victim had a friend named Larry who tried destroying the demonic glove that Freddy uses but got caught, which ties into the mission where you successfully burn it. The next major piece of lore that you can find is Freddy's diary in the Rune Room. Freddy explains that he was always lonely and had no friends as a kid, turning into stuffed plushies for comfort and learning how to make his own stuffed animals. The diary entry ends with the mention that Freddy found this weird book, possibly alluding to the one you use in the spell mission, and you're left on a cliffhanger. The last major piece of lore that isn't tied into the current events you're playing is a second diary kept by Freddy in a plushie room, which is downstairs to the oven room. This diary has 2 pages you can flip. The first page reads that Freddy put his newfound book to use and tried a spell on one of his previously mentioned plushies he made, making it spark to life only for a second. The second page reads that people all over town had been visiting Freddy's house to ask if he's seen any missing children around town, and he wants them to leave him alone because they just don't understand. Vague wording there. He then says that he figured out that the plushies need souls to stay alive longer, and he's finally going to put his plan into motion. Despite the order that you find these books in, the dates on each entry imply that the book in the plush room was written before the one in the Rune Room, and the last entry in the plush room diary lines up with the same date as the Rune Room diary. I think that's most likely a typo, since the language in the Rune Room book implies it was written before the plush room book. Either way, it's a tiny mistake, and it still implies the same thing either way, so it's not a big problem. After learning information to the things you find in the game, here's the full explanation of the lore in Teddy Freddy. Freddy was a lonely child growing up, and found company in his stuffed animals rather than real people, because nobody liked him. Even learning how to sew his own stuffed plushies, so that he can make the ones he really wanted. There are 3 main plushies he gets attached to, that being Teddy, Sally, and Chucky, which I think are the plushies you collect for the mysterious spell mission. One day, Freddy somehow stumbles upon this book of witchcraft and becomes curious about it, thinking one of the spells could help him make plush friends more lifelike so that he can actually talk to them and play with them like real people. He tries one of his spells on Teddy and it's successful, but only for a second. Freddy starts to let his desire get to his head more and more, making him go insane and experiment more extremely. Eventually, he turns to using people, mainly children, to steal their souls for the plushies instead of just whatever demonic souls were spawning from the spells first. People started to notice the kids going missing and obviously went around to spread awareness, including stopping at Freddy's house and making him annoyed. Freddy finally discovers the key to making his permanently living plushies, being the souls of people who are the most innocent. And it's implied that this leads to the events of the first few victims before our protagonists. At some point during Freddy's demonic experimenting, he uses the spells on himself to make him an immortal demon, permanently having his head covered by the teddy bear head, and his eyes start to glow red. But it's unclear when exactly this happened. Freddy first catches the victim, who had written the code of the padlock on the dungeon wall, and their fate is unknown. Then comes the person who wrote the notes the protagonist finds, along with a guy named Larry. It's assumed that Larry and the previous victim before us were found at the same time, and they had worked together to try and escape, but Larry found Freddy's glove and tried to destroy it, which led to him getting caught. The fate of the previous victim before us is unknown. And then there's the protagonist, who can have a variety of fates depending on what you do in the game. It's not explicitly said which ending is canon, so the game pretty much leaves your fate completely up to you. For transparency's sake, I'm gonna play out the events assuming every mission in the game gets completed. Our protagonist completes all the tasks that the other captives were unable to. They successfully destroy Freddy's demonic glove, and they're able to free the souls of the plushies, use the souls to also undo any other spells, and free Freddy's mortal soul. They escape his house and probably have PTSD now. Teddy Freddy references a lot of other media in a way that feels genuine and not cash grabby like most mobile games. It's clear that the devs are fans of classic horror and wanted to honor it along with the horror game industry of old and new. You can even argue that the gameplay style being similar to Granny is a genuine inspiration in itself. The main inspiration for Freddy in this game is obviously Freddy Krueger, and there are many things around the game to show it. Freddy has an obsession over kidnapping and killing children for his plushies, which could be a nod to Krueger's pedophilic desires and obsession with killing kids. Freddy's demonic glove is the knife-fingered glove that Krueger uses as his signature weapon. One of Freddy's customizable skins, called Nightmares, is an obvious nod to Krueger, having his signature sweater, knife glove, and hat. There are decorative objects for your bedroom that you can buy using buttons in the shop. Two of those objects are plushies. One of Freddy's Nightmares skin and another referencing Jason Voorhees called Masked Freddy. Those are probably referencing Freddy vs. Jason specifically, but it's also the first instance of other horror characters being referenced. Besides the previously mentioned Jason reference, the third classic horror villain referenced is Leatherface, in the form of some of the paintings on the walls. The other paintings include the demonic clown, which was mentioned at the start of the video, and whatever that is. I also noticed the weapon that Freddy is usually holding, which looks like a giant scissor. It could be a reference to Pyramid Head, since his old great knife was a scissor before they made it its own thing. The last real horror reference is a Poppy Playtime skin, which is just Huggy Wuggy. Obviously they added it because Poppy Playtime came out. There are a couple of non-horror references in the game, but very few. The obvious one is the Pixel skin, which is just Freddy in Minecraft armor with a cube head. One of the noisemakers by the front door is the spider-legged baby head from Toy Story, but with red eyes instead. The noisemaker by the sewer also kind of looks like Slappy from Goosebumps, but I don't think it's actually a reference to anything. I could be wrong though. I don't know if anybody else sees it, but it also kind of looks like a mannequin of Pee-wee's head, and I think it's kind of funny. A lot of people say that this game is either a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game or ripoff, because Freddy's name and, his bare head, but I don't really see that at all. It's obvious where the inspiration really came from, like I said before. There aren't a lot of things I can criticize this game for, surprisingly. The game is pretty well made, and I already explained all the things I love about it. I do have critiques regarding the ad system and the map design though. Throughout the gameplay of Ghost Mode, Easy Mode, and Normal Mode, the devs have inserted ad breaks so they can keep their game funded. I don't really have a problem with ads on their own like most people do. I get that free sites have to get their money from advertisers, and I'm willing to support that. My only real critique comes from the fact that the game makes you stop playing to play the ad, but the game will still be running in the background, which means Freddy doesn't stop. It could be a problem for players that get themselves into an active chase with Freddy, forcing them to stop and making them lose. I'm fine with ads during gameplay on Ghost Mode. This criticism really only goes for the easy and normal modes. The other problem I have is the new addition of having to watch an ad in order to play all 5 lives. I was there for the old version of the game where this didn't exist, so this could be my own personal bias coming into play, but I still feel like I should voice that I find it annoying. I truly understand that they needed a way to separate the gameplay loop from being a one-on-one copy of Granny's, so it's somewhat understandable, but still. The maps and models are well done and textured nicely. Every room in the house is tinted with a different colored lighting, and it's really nice, like giving each room its own little vibe. I'll nitpick the map layout a little bit though. It seems like some of the rooms were made with the player's signs in mind, but not really Freddy's. And in some cases, the rooms are just too small in general, even for the player. The workshop room is especially kind of cramped, especially after you knock over the wood pieces blocking the tunnel and after the floor falls from the attic. Most other rooms are designed a bit too small for the furniture placed in them, like the dungeon, kitchen, living room, guest bedroom, Freddy's bedroom, the bathroom, and the upstairs lounge. It doesn't affect the gameplay too much, but in some cases you'll either not be able to walk around without knocking something over. Freddy also gets stuck on the dungeon door, and his body often has to phase through furniture because of his walking path. My other critique for the map design is the tunnel areas where you're safe from Freddy. It's not a problem with the gameplay, but I feel like logically that he shouldn't have rooms where he can't access them, especially when one of them is a room he needs to do his rituals, which I'm assuming is often. To add on, he can phase through the locked door that needs to be unlocked by the lever behind the painting, which isn't bad on its own because they want to show that he can access locked rooms in his own house. I just wish that they would have an animation of the door opening, but locks again if you try to open it without pulling the lever. I dissected this game inside and out, and I don't feel like there's anything else to talk about. This is really one of the few mobile games that I've really come to love, and it seems to be a decent amount of people who like it too. The devs are still active and update the game regularly, and I hope they continue to do so and do some good work. That's really all I have for y'all today.